Thanks, everyone, for joining us today on KRTD Chat. I'm joined with Jerry Vastellanos, and we're going to get into a couple of stories for you guys. So the first thing I want to pull up is a video just to get us into our first story. So I'm going to... Yeah, this is going to be great. So I'm going to adjust the screen for this, guys. So this is a tweet that comes from Meta PCs. Let's go ahead and play this.
To reflect who we are and what we hope to build, I'm proud to announce that we are now Facebook.
I wonder if Facebook knows.
So,
or as I like to call them, face fuck.
Yes.
Because of the way they fuck everybody. But
for those of you who don't know, Facebook wants to change their name to Meta for some reason, even though everybody...
because everybody's sick and tired of Facebook. That's what it is.
Exactly.
It's like when Comcast decided to become Xfinity. Comcast was known as the worst cable company in the world, so quite naturally, they figured no one would know that they were Comcast by branding themselves Xfinity. I think this is kind of the same logic that Mark Zuckerberg is following here. Let's change our name, and hopefully people will forget that we were this company, Facebook, that censors and misguides and misdirects the news for different agendas and collects all your data and everything else.
Let's go into the first thing here. So Meta, the Meta company. So they
let's so really quickly, let me just parse this though too. So for those who haven't followed, obviously Mark Zuckerberg announced that they were Meta, right? And suddenly, out of the blue, this other company that's actually called Meta puts out a public statement because it came out in the news that Facebook was surprised that there was another company called Meta before they made the announcement. But that's clearly bullshit because no company decides to take on a name without having their army of lawyers go out and investigate and make sure that that IP and that trademark is available to them. So share what we found.
So this letter came out from Meta. We're gonna put this up in two parts, guys, because it's a really big letter. So,
should we read it? You want to read it out loud also?
Sure. So, Facebook stole our name and livelihood. This is from the Meta company for immediate public release. Hello, world. We are Meta company. Original flavor. For the last 3 months, Facebook lawyers have been hounding us to sell our name to them. We refused their offer on multiple bases, namely the low offer wouldn't cover the cost of changing our name, and we insisted on knowing the client and intent, which they did not want to disclose.
I wonder why.
At least 2 law firms were involved, one in the USA that requested our trademark and domains, Kilpatrick, Townsend, and Stockton. The other in Europe aggressively contacting us to sell our domain registrations, Hogan Lovells. On October 20th, 2021, during a phone call with Facebook attorneys, we declined their low offer and maintained our requirements. At this point, we presumed it was Facebook and identified them on the call. The attorney representing Facebook declared they would respect our existing right and registration. So,
$1 billion company did not want to disclose who they were when they wanted to take this company's trademark name. It just boggles. Why don't you just be transparent? Hey, we didn't like to go into negotiations here. What Facebook was trying to do was hide themselves because they didn't want to get shaken down, even though the $20 million that Meta is asking for, I think, is far too low, given the value of Facebook's company and how they're going to use that name. Now, Meta is a tech company, as is Facebook. So for Facebook to come out now and say, "Oh, we didn't know," we ran up against this. We ran into this brick wall. No, it's bullshit. You guys completely knew. And there you go. There's Zuckerberg with his Meta computer. So I guess they're going to be selling computers and tech now also.
Yes.
So this isn't going to be easy for them to wrangle that Meta name because Meta is a tech company that sells technology, hardware.
Exactly. Now, let's take a look at the second part of the letter. They couldn't buy us. They tried to bury us by force of media. We shouldn't be surprised by these actions from a company that continually says one thing and does another. Facebook and its operating officers are deceitful and acting in bad faith not only toward us but towards all of humanity.
Pretty much.
It's unfortunate to be to have been associated with a company so rooted in controversy and fixated on domination. We aim to be distinguished from Facebook's totalitarian view of the future. We hope the negative association with Facebook and its founder will be forgotten, but we won't ignore the damages done. We have proceeded to file the necessary legal actions. This message may be regarded as a public cease and desist. We welcome your support. One more thing. Our new product launch just got delayed because of Facebook. We must deal with these matters in the coming weeks. We will make an announcement earlier than expected. We promise it will be good. Stay tuned. Thank you. Sincerely, Nate Skullick, founder of the Meta Company. Media inquiries, whatever. Okay.
So that's tortious interference. Facebook has interfered with their new product launch with this bullshit, taking their name and acting all innocent like they didn't know about it. Meantime, the people at Meta who had something ready to launch are clearly sabotaged in whatever they were preparing now because of this nonsense shenanigans from Facebook.
Exactly. And to my knowledge, Facebook wants to keep their app called Facebook, and Meta is going to be the parent company, and as which they're going to sell computers, Instagram, Messenger would all fall under the Meta brand, kind of as the parent company. They want to kind of unite them all further in some way.
Shane, did you see Batman versus Superman?
I saw some of it, yes.
So remember Jesse Eisenberg's portrayal of Lex Luthor?
Mm-hmm.
This big tech company just dominating the whole world, social media, technology. I used to think that Jeff Bezos reminded me of Lex Luthor just from a physical standpoint, but Jeffrey Zuckerberg has clearly got the ambitions of Lex Luthor to just completely dominate and wrap his tentacles around everything we have to deal with in daily life when it comes to technology and social media with this the computers and all the other stuff that Meta is going to be releasing.
Absolutely. So here's an article. This is from New York. This is from The Hill, I think. There's already a company called Meta, and it's asking for several million to give the name to Mark Zuckerberg. I think that's from The Hill. I could be wrong. It didn't grab the title of the news company. Sorry, guys, for not giving you credit there. Corporate media outlet. Just a week ago, Mark Zuckerberg loudly announced that Facebook will now be called Meta and change it to make its way for Metaverse. Tycoon had problems adopting this new name because since there's already a company called Meta in the United States, which would be willing to give its name change for several millions of dollars. So, since the authorities have not yet granted,
they can't grant the trademark registration.
Yep.
If Meta has the trademark, they can't give it. They can't grant it to Facebook.
Exactly. And this is from The Hill, I think, not that one. This is Facebook discovers there's already a company named Meta.
Yeah, they knew it months ago.
And here's the last one. Here's the New York Times. Meta makes changes to its marketing strategy amid scandals. But they're not talking about Meta, the computer company. They're talking about Meta, Facebook.
Yeah, because already Facebook is known as Meta. They don't own the trademark, but already they're running around identifying themselves as Meta. Do you know if anybody else did this, Shane? What kind of legal trouble they'd cease and desists? The legal trouble they'd get into for running around with somebody else's IP trademark, but it's Facebook. So they're going to write it out with their army of attorneys and their billions of dollars. Instead of pay this company what they asked for, they're going to drag it through the legal system and in the meantime, usurp their product launch that they mentioned in their press release. How's that fair?
It's not. Imagine, now this is Facebook doesn't have any respect for anything, but imagine if somebody in the independent media space did it. Let's say somebody wanted to call themselves KRTD Media or Hardlens Media, and they just started running around with one of those names. I'm sure I'd have a fit, and I'm sure that at Hardlens you guys would have a fit as well.
Of course,
it wouldn't go pleasantly.
And it would cost. And here's the other thing too: It costs a lot of money to hire attorneys to protect your rights. Even when you're in
Exactly.
the right, you are bled when you have to use attorneys to enforce your rights. I can say this from firsthand experience and some issues that I've been involved in with protecting my rights or trying to enforce my rights. In many cases, those that were in the wrong lied, perjured themselves, and all the money I spent to enforce my rights was down the toilet, because even then it's not guaranteed. So,
Exactly. And here's the difference between, let's say, one of our little media companies versus Facebook. If somebody did this to us, we couldn't afford. It would cost us a lot of money to deal with the consequences. Facebook doesn't have to worry about anything
of course not.
because they're doing this to somebody else. So they just write it out with their attorneys, like you said, and they'll call it a day. But it's ridiculous. And the New York Times already calling them Meta.
Of course, well, the New York Times is a toilet too. So,
Oh yeah, are they kidding me?
the New York Times ain't the New York Times we grew up with, nor is the Washington Post.
No, but you know,
Not
they
now
just
that Jeff
discovered-
Bezos owns it. In a clear conflict of interest, Bezos owns the Washington Post and also has I think he's got a seat on the National Security Council or something. He's got some kind of deal with the Pentagon. So just kind of slightly detouring here. I recall a time where all of us were very, very concerned about our privacy. We didn't want anybody listening to our conversations. We'd get freaked out if we had a sense that someone was listening to us on the phones. Then came Amazon, what Alexa, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Alexa, do this. Hey, Alexa, do that. What a convenience to have that listening device in your home, while also failing to remember that Jeff Bezos, who owns Amazon, has a deal with the Pentagon and our security agencies. If ever there was a way for your privacy to be completely compromised, you think we're going to find out whether or not Alexa is also that all that data that Alexa collects is not possibly being passed along to our national security apparatuses and whatever kind of deal that Bezos has with them? Come on.
And also probably Amazon to get its ads.
Sure.
It's ridiculous. And I remember a time.
We've given up our freedom. We've given up our privacy for convenience, not realizing that giving up for convenience has sacrificed all of our privacy and the last vestige of privacy that we have.
It absolutely has, and we don't fight as hard. Do you know a company? There's a company called Magic Jack. They were really popular when they first launched.
What were they called?
Magic Jack.
It rings a bell, but refresh my memory. What did they do?
So it's a landline through the
internet. Yeah, I recall. Okay.
And it's a VoIP. So it's basically you hook up, for those of you who don't know, you hook up a landline through your computer.
Right.
And it's so cheap. You pay like $40 for the year. So people were like, okay, you know what? A lot of people were getting rid of their landlines and switching to cell phones. But a lot of people missed their landline, so they bought the Magic Jacks. Now, what Magic Jack was doing when they first launched was they were listening to every single conversation you had and recording it. Nobody realized. They got into a lot of trouble.
Wow.
And then they had to stop. So now I have 2 Magic Jacks right now. They don't listen to my conversations because they got in a lot of trouble for what they did. And
were they? So when they were recording conversations and stuff, were they just accumulating them, thinking that they could then sell them to national security agencies, or what was their defense?
I don't know if they're going to sell them to national security agencies or if they were going to sell them to companies. I'm not even sure. I think they were just recording it for whatever reason, and people got pissed off.
Yeah.
And there were lawsuits, and they didn't disclose it initially. I don't know how it was found out. They didn't disclose it initially when they sold their product. So there were all these commercials for them. People got pissed off, and they said, you're going to stop recording that. And they've never been as big as they were when they first launched. And I don't believe it's because of the cell phone craze. I believe it's because of a lack of trust. I believe it's because people don't trust them now that they've done it once.
Well, I have to tell you, Shane, I wasn't aware of that controversy and that scandal with them recording conversations. This is the first I've heard of it. So, and maybe I just wasn't paying attention to the news enough. I mean, I would imagine that the emergence of cell phones is what probably, and I think that it's probably older generations that didn't want to let go of their landlines that were maybe intimidated by tech, boomers or seniors. But I mean, I guess you make a good point. If more people had heard about that, then that does.
Well, It was a
It's
big
land.
scandal at the time because everybody was buying them, not just because that. It was also a landline you could text on, which was a big thing.
Okay.
Because you can't text on a landline. That's not a thing.
Right.
But Magic Jack allowed you to do that.
Okay.
And the other thing it allowed you to do is you could check your landline from your cell phone. So you could be out and somebody could call you and you could see it on your cell phone. And you could even answer remotely. So they were very popular because of all those features, but people got pissed off when they were listening to your conversations. That was the big deal with them. But I might be wrong. Maybe they just, because they're still around, maybe they just got unpopular, less popular because of cell phones. But I think that lack of trust may have had something to do with it. Because a company with all those cool, that's a lot of interesting features.
Sure. No, I think you got a point there.
I think lack of trust. And I use them now only after verifying that they're not listening to my conversations. I had to do a long dive before purchasing any of their devices. But that's a big thing. But you're right. We take our security granted. But, so Facebook really needs to stop. They don't own Meta right now. They cannot call themselves Meta. It's ridiculous. And they should have to pay for every day they've called themselves Meta. They should have to give them some more money to this company.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't let them off easy. They don't let us off easy. My most recent 2-day suspension on Facebook, Shane, speaking of Facebook, Facefuck, did you follow in the news how all of the QAnon people ran to Dallas because they thought JFK Jr. was going to show up where Kennedy was assassinated in Dealey Plaza, and he was going to join Trump. He was going to announce he really didn't die in the airplane crash, and he was going to join Trump as his vice presidential nominee in the next election. Did you see any of this in the news?
No, that sounds
you missed
ridiculous.
it. No, it really happened. It really happened. These crazy people, there were mobs at Dealey Plaza the other day. So I was on Facebook, of course, laughing at all of this because, of course, JFK Jr. didn't show up. But I decided to post a video I'd seen on social media. It was a meme of a Chihuahua humping a Trump plushie. Maybe you've seen it. It was a funny little video. Someone recorded their Chihuahua humping a stuffed Trump plush. And Facebook wrote me, "This is copyrighted. We're giving you a 3-day suspension because you shared copyrighted content that you weren't authorized to share." And I'm like, it's a meme. It's all over social media. Now you're going to start censoring people on Facebook from posting a funny meme because someone claims they have a copyright on it just to further silence people for 3 days?
I want to give some. Facebook doesn't care about copyrights. Are you aware that?
Well, I think someone reported the fact that I shared the meme as a diss to the Trump people, and their AI just automatically flags you. And even if you dispute it, well, it's only a 3-day suspension, right? I mean, I'm not on Facebook that much that I'm worried about it. But still, it's an inconvenience if you see things that other people are posting that you want to like, friends, you want to comment on actually legitimate things that you want to keep up with. And their AI just systematically, if somebody reports you, if you've got a hater and somebody reports you, there's nobody looking at context for during the period that you're suspended until it's up.
Facebook, this is rich because if you go to Facebook videos, this is something I know from when I was younger. Facebook has every single episode of every single series of Power Rangers posted by individual users, and they're worried about your little copyright. They have 25 series of that all posted. They have full episodes of comedies like is this the meme?
Yeah, I just shared that. That's what I got the strike for on Facebook for 3 days.
They don't give me copyright on YouTube too, but yeah.
No, you're not gonna have a problem with it. No, it's bullshit. I mean, I found the video on YouTube originally. I found it posted by the original person. Then I found it posted by a group that said you can license this clip, and I'm like, I don't need to license it because someone else posted it, and it's fair use. It's
fair use. Let me ask you: if Facebook is going to let every single Seinfeld episode and Power Rangers episode and etc. be on Facebook and not call it a copyright strike, why are they bothering to go after that?
Well, let me ask you though, when you say these shows are on Facebook, is Facebook posting them? Because they may have a licensing deal.
No, they're not
Okay,
posting
so it's
them.
just other people are posting these things then.
Exactly. And the
Well, then
Dragon Ball.
it's arbitrary, and it's not. It's clearly not consistent enforcement across all users.
No, exactly. All the anime shows and the comedy shows and cartoons, all these things go onto Facebook. Everything does. People will post them, and it's a big thing, and nobody cares.
Yeah.
But they're caring about this. How long is this clip?
Oh, it's not even a minute.
Not even a minute.
Not even a minute.
And they're worried about this. Okay.
Well, I don't know if Live Eyes saw it, or if it was just, again, someone reporting it and their AI just automatically like goes into destruction mode or nuke
First of
mode.
all, their AI is not very good if it's not catching all these full episodes of these shows.
Of course not.
And it's
Right.
catching this, because I have a feeling they'd have a much bigger problem. I don't think anybody's going to sue for this. I think Facebook would have a huge problem if Saban Brands, the Power Rangers owners, sued them for having all their content on there.
Yeah.
Rather than, I don't think anybody's going to sue them for this. So they're clearly, their AI is broken and they're not having the right priorities.
Absolutely.
And their priorities seem to be worrying about the political stuff on Facebook. Let's go into our next story. So, to pull up some information here for this one. There were a couple of elections recently. Now, friend of the show, Jeff Carr, he's a progressive. He ran. I'm going to put this in the private chat, Jerry, so you could see as well. Can you see the private chat?
I'm not seeing it in the private chat yet.
Hold on, I'm going to put it in there.
I'm seeing the regular comments that are coming up, but not. Okay, I see it now.
So those are the election results. If you want to read those while I get the rest of the information, and the guy's first name is Joe.
Read them on the air, or just read them for myself?
Read them on the air while I get the rest of the information.
Okay. Carr 61, Michelle Tousley 49, Pat Espy 41.
So those are the results of the mayoral election.
And I asked you about these numbers, and you said that's actually how small that town was.
That's how small the town is.
Only 100 people 150 people live there.
300 people live there, but that's also
okay. Yeah, not everybody came out to vote. Okay,
not everybody comes out to vote, and that's typical. At least I would say.
Yeah.
In most towns, that not everybody's going to come out to vote. Let me see. I didn't grab the right stuff. You want to, let me see if I can. I'm trying to grab the rest of the info here and put it in the chat. Hang on, I'm grabbing the rest of the info.
Sure.
So that's the last word is money there. It just wouldn't let me put the full word. So this is some information. So Jeff Carr is a progressive. He ran for lieutenant governor, and he's the one who won the election. He's a friend of mine, friend of the show. When he ran for lieutenant governor, our revolution endorsed a fake progressive candidate instead of him because he was calling everybody out. So he didn't get the backing of our revolution. Someone else did. He basically got knifed in that race, like most actual people who would change things are. And then he just didn't run for a while. He was on their school board there. Big champion for education, public education. He won the mayoral election, but none of that really matters on that level of that government because they only care about who's going to fix the roads, who's going to be responsible for this.
Yeah.
And his biggest thing is, and I really like this policy, is public banks. He wants to put the money, instead of like putting it into a Chase Bank or a Citibank, a bank that's in the town, he wants to put the money into for the town budget. That's his big thing. Keeping the money in the town.
That makes sense to stimulate the economy there.
Exactly. And their big thing is they're about to make a whole lot of tax revenue from, guess what? Legalized marijuana
Mm.
in the town. They have 2 marijuana dispensaries, and that's going to give them millions of dollars in, or at least a million, which is a lot for a town of 300 people in tax revenue. So guess what? Legalized marijuana is a good thing, everybody.
Yeah, I mean it's a revenue flow.
Exactly. So here's a little bit of information. So Michelle is a hairstylist and granddaughter of a former mayor there, and she was a good friend of Jeff's, the one who won. She's currently on their town council and has 2 years left, and she's currently vacationing in Florida. I wonder if that was during the election too. So,
Huh.
Pat Epsy is from Canada, Ohio, and then Angel Fire, and then Eagle Nest. So, Angel Fire is the town next to Eagle Nest. So then they move there to Eagle Nest. So this guy, Pat Epsy, is part of the 1%, operates a drug testing company, and his wife was the campaign director for Gary Johnson. This is another guy who ran for mayor. For Ohio and Illinois, not for every state. He's against cannabis. And he pretty much copied Jeff Carr's entire platform, except for using the marijuana money, to my knowledge, even though they'd be getting it anyway. Because it's not a town issue, it's a state issue whether the marijuana is legalized. But this guy spent a lot of money. But this is also an indication a lot of people are even fed up with their local politics.
Yeah.
If you can't even get 300 people in a small town of 300 to vote, there's something wrong with our system.
Yeah, well, we usually have less than half voter turnout here in Chicago, so I think it's an epidemic everywhere with getting people out to vote.
I want to go to the next election, so we covered that one a little bit. We're just going to cover one more election, then we're going to go over to our next story. So this is one of our hosts, Madeline Hoffman, the Green Party. She ran for governor of New Jersey. So, of course, she didn't win. So Phil Murphy, the Democrat, got 50.5% of the vote.
Jesus
That's
Christ.
1.254,000 votes, while Jack Citarelli got 48.7% of the vote.
Look at how narrow that margin is, though, Shane.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you want to talk about this is a duopoly. It's all it is. No third party can even hope to compete, and it just shouldn't be that way. But with the duopoly and the oligarchy, just keeping the stranglehold over preventing, third parties or limiting or campaign finance reform. We're spinning our wheels. I mean, sometimes I love coming on the air and my show and your show and Hardlands Media's show discussing this stuff. But at a certain point, it feels like my head's going to explode because it just feels like we're always spitting in the wind, and everybody's doing everything that they can, short of violent, bloody revolution, to change things. And when everybody's doing everything short of violent, bloody revolution to change things, it just leaves you to wonder, whoa, what is our alternative?
Exactly. And if you look at the third-party candidates, Socialist Workers Party got 0.1% of the vote.
Yeah.
Libertarian Party got 0.3 and Green Party got 0.3. So it even seems like at least in New Jersey, it seems there's a close margin between progressives and libertarians who are willing to vote third party. But it's a very small amount of people.
Yeah.
They can't even get to the 1% mark in the race.
No, that's what's most troubling.
Do you know what the qualifications were to get into the debate?
Tell me.
Guess.
Well, let me ask you, how many candidates actually ended up debating? Was it just Phil and Jack?
Yeah.
Well, so they shut everybody else out of the debates.
Yes.
So what are the qualifications? I couldn't even begin to guess, unless it has to do with polling or what.
It has to do with money.
Oh, so that you had to pay to participate in the debate.
Well, no. You have to raise a certain level of money.
Oh, that's right. Okay, yeah. Okay.
Guess how much money you need to be in the debate?
At least 100,000?
More.
$1 million.
Less.
500,000.
$490,000 to be
Sold. just like our government sold to the highest bidder.
Exactly. Now, how do you expect any of those third-party candidates?
Oh, they
And there's-
can't. They can't. That's why they've got those. You know, they can't. That's why they can't even hit. What was it? 1%.
They got 0.3, 0.3,
Yeah.
and 1.1.
You couldn't even hit 0.5%.
No, they couldn't.
Jesus.
But without the media coverage, without
Yeah.
here's another intro. They asked there was a local news outlet who asked Madeline Hoffman to write an op-ed about what it's like to be excluded from the debates. She wrote it for them, and they said, "We can't print this." Why? It would look like an endorsement of your campaign so close to the election.
How is that? How is an endorsement because she's talking about why she's not being allowed to participate in debates? They argued that was an endorsement.
Yes. They said that could be seen as an endorsement if we print this now. Well,
Jesus
first of all,
Christ.
why did they ask her so close to the election?
Yeah, waste the poor one's time.
Do you guess when they interviewed her and the other two third-party candidates? How many about a week before the election, they got their interviews in the local magazines or one local paper.
Oh my God.
Well, that was what the editor of the paper, according to Madeline, had told them that they wanted it the last week of the election to interview the other candidates.
Okay.
Which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
You're supposed to do that you're supposed to interview candidates at the beginning of the election cycle.
Right. Of course.
But if you wait till the end, it's very likely not a lot of people are going to see the article on Madeline or on the other two candidates. But I think our system is really just geared towards the Democrats and the Republicans for the most part.
I was going to try to come up with a flippant remark but yeah, I mean, we know that because it's so obvious.
But you know what? There were some Greens who won in the last cycle.
Yeah.
In this cycle, but not that many of them. I don't know how many. It was maybe 5 or 10.
And we've managed to have a very, very small but vocal and strong faction of socialists in Chicago City Council, which is good. Progressives and socialists.
Are they Democrats though, or are they?
Well, I think some of them identify as Democrats, some of them identify as socialists.
Okay.
So yeah, they don't all have to swear allegiance to the almighty Democrats in name only neoliberal Republican light party that is running things.
Now, so I was going to bring this up, and this is a point that Daniel, I think, likes to make on Hard Lens. I want to bring this up because we were talking about how it's a duopoly. I think that these rules that Daniel talks about all the time are actually reality.
Oh, of course they are.
And that affected the race in New Jersey.
Yep.
Significantly.
That rules for rulers that Daniel brought to all of our attention. I mean, it's like it really is like a roadmap to figuring out how to navigate amongst any situation, whether it's politics, whether it's your work, whether it's your relationships. It's a fascinating. I don't know that I would call it a theology. A fascinating philosophy. That's the word.
Exactly. Let's look at it. Without power, you can affect nothing. Well, Murphy's the governor now. Prior to the election, he's the Democratic nominee. That's a powerful position to be in, and the other Republican as well. That's a powerful position to be in. Get key supporters.
Yep.
Let's see. Get key supporters. Bernie Sanders was down there campaigning for Murphy. That's a key supporter to get the progressives.
Is anybody paying it? That's a good thing. Is anybody paying attention to Bernie anymore? That guy broke everybody's heart.
Oh,
I think that he is a man of good intention, but just in the end, so goddamn spineless. It's just I never imagined never imagined he would roll over the way that he did after
Well,
everything he'd accomplished.
here's what a lot of people don't know about Bernie. Bernie Sanders won his first his mayoral race by 10 votes as an independent. That's a little mayor seats in Burlington.
Yeah.
A third party called the Vermont Progressive Party formed around him in order to kick out the city council in Burlington so he could get his legislation passed. So he grew up around being an independent and having his political career. And then the only reason he got into Congress, he kept splitting the vote between the Democrat and himself. So he went to the Democratic Party and made a deal with them in order to get into the House. Basically, I'll vote with you most of the time. There's a couple of things I'm not going to vote with you on, but I'll vote with you most of the time as long as you don't run somebody against me.
Yeah, he's always aligned with them.
He's aligned with them. Now, here's what he's really good at. Bernie is really good at they call him the Amendment King. He's really good at getting very, very, very tiny victories in every bill. That he'll vote for it. He's willing to play ball. But that's not always the best thing, because we need more than he agreed to do Obamacare for a total of $10 billion in community healthcare centers. That was his price. And that was a pretty low price for something like that. But back to the race, the key supporter was Bernie. I think a lot of people pissed him, but a lot of progressives might have been on the fence on Murphy, whether to vote for Murphy or to vote for a third party. And Bernie going down there was very important for Murphy to secure some of those voters who were Bernie Democrats who weren't so sure about him, who were leaning third party. It was very important because you could see by those slim margins, which I'm going to bring up again, he needed probably some of those lefties.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah.
It's very important, but you know what? Bernie
obviously it helped.
It helped him, but and I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a fan of the Democrats, but I find this very interesting. Look at Phil Murphy. He's a neoliberal corporatist. He's a traditional Democrat.
Yeah, and Bernie went down and supported him because he's a Democrat.
Exactly. But look at Ed Markey. Now, of course, I'm pissed at Ed Markey too. I'm pissed at all of them. But Ed Markey at least somewhat aligns with Bernie Sanders' policies. And he was running against Joe Kennedy, who's a horrible neoliberal corporatist.
Yeah.
He wouldn't even make a tepid endorsement of Ed Markey, but he would go down and campaign for Phil Murphy is ridiculous. It's ridiculous, in my opinion. How that guy at least aligns with your values. Well, no, I can't endorse him. Phil Murphy, I'm on my way to New Jersey.
Right.
Ed Markey, you're on your own. I gotta save my energy for Phil Murphy in a few months.
The deal with the devil.
Yeah. But yeah, so let's go ahead on our next story. Go ahead over to SpaceX.
Yes. So I when I was on a Hard Lens Media show not too long ago, we were talking about Bezos and Musk. And at least Musk has got some scientific and educational background that he knows about some of the science that his company is engaged in creating.
Yeah.
But I had commented that it's like watching the race between Tony Stark and Lex Luthor. Mm-hmm. Looking at Bezos and Musk, with Bezos obviously being the Lex Luthor. And that's not to say that I'm like a huge fan of Musk, since Tony Stark was kind of heroic, even though he was, fictionally, he's a very flawed character. But watching these two like race to make up the gap that NASA has dropped now, because once the space shuttle program had shut down, funding to NASA kind of started diminishing, and these two guys come out to kind of fill the gap. Bezos, I think, more for his own ego, because Bezos also wants to basically use space as a way to make money from tourism. Musk's company is actually providing services for NASA, with these launches and getting stuff up to the space stations and stuff. So I think that, whatever you say about or think about Musk, at least he's performing a service that NASA's not able to do anymore. And it's not about, he's making a lot of money, but it's not all about just enriching himself, as I think Bezos is looking at the final frontier as serving him.
Exactly. Now, when I look at this, at NASA, and what these two billionaires are doing, I look at NASA. This is something that America used to do together. It used to be a big thing. Hey, we're racing to go to the moon.
Yeah.
Hey, we're trying to do this. It used to be a community thing.
Yeah.
It used to be something that could make all of us proud because we did this together. This was a big thing. You know what? Now these billionaires we got this. We can do it ourselves.
Because it's the corporate states of America, Shane. What
Exactly.
you just said is what we were and what we are now. This is not a representative government or country. This is the company of the corporations, the oligarchs, and the billionaires. So quite naturally, this is all about two billionaires doing it for themselves and their companies, as opposed to all of us coming together as a country in a patriotic effort to do something to advance.
And I don't mind Bezos's and Musk's technicians. If Bezos and Musk want to contribute their technicians and do something with NASA and with the rest of the country, I'm all for that. But they're trying to do it privately for themselves.
Of course.
And eventually, here's the thing. Eventually, there probably will be some kind of private version of it. But we haven't even gotten the public version of it yet. Can we please get the public version first?
You know what the tinfoil hat theory is with Musk, too? There are asteroids up there that if anybody was able to get to these asteroids or comets and mine the minerals and the metals off of these objects floating in space, they would become the rich. I mean, it would be more money in the stuff that they can mine than we can even imagine. So with Musk at the forefront with his space program, looking to get further into space and use this technology to get up there, a lot of people some people are speculating that's what it's really all about. It's getting to that asteroid to mine all of that very, very valuable metals, ores, and other things that if you were the only person who had your hands on them, you would completely control and dominate everything here on Earth.
Too bad the independent media doesn't have enough money to get a technician to do that, because then we could just all of us put in a couple $1,000. The independent media goes up there together. We mine the asteroids, and then we can compete with CNN and MSNBC together.
There you go. Yeah. MSDNC.
Yes, MSDNC. Have you seen there's actually a website called MSDNC?
Yeah, and on Twitter too, and the Clinton News Network, CNN.
Yeah. They got a wonderful article about how Kyle has sold out to Big Seltzer.
That's great.
Yeah. They haven't posted anything in a while, though. But
the Seltzer King.
I know. That was funny. But yeah, so by the way, propaganda in the chat. I made you a mod. Thanks for joining us today. Yeah, we need to get back to, of course, one day, look, we may have these private ships and this private whatever, but we haven't even gotten the technology right publicly.
Well, getting back to the story of Musk and Bezos, though, too. So, Bezos was suing our government for, I think it was almost $3 billion because they favored Musk's technology over Bezos, and I guess the judge dismissed the lawsuit. So Bezos didn't get his way, and Musk went on to social media and was trolling. That's the thing I love about these guys is they're not above trolling each other for the rest of our entertainment. So do you have the link for what Musk trolled Bezos with? Because I forgot what it was, but it was some kind of a Judge Dredd quote, which I find even funnier is that he's using.
You gave it to me.
Pop culture character. Let me see if I can find it on.
Definitely.
I think it was in the article link. I think it was actually the headline for the article link. But let me go to my.
And here's where I'm at with that. And I want to look at this objectively. Let's pretend that these are not 2 billion. Let's pretend this is purely for science, and there are 2 people competing with each other. You know what? If Elon Musk's technology is superior to Jeff Bezos' technology, the government should favor it.
Right.
It's not about your ego. It's not about anything. It's about whose technology is superior. If we look at it.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head, though. I don't think Bezos' technology is superior to Musk's, and Bezos is having a little temper tantrum is what it came down to. That's why he
Oh,
initiated the lawsuit. I don't think that Bezos's operations are even close to what Tesla is providing for our
well,
space.
here's the difference. Jeff Bezos. Didn't Jeff Bezos make PayPal, if I'm not mistaken? That was his thing, right?
No, no, that was Musk.
That was Musk. Oh,
Musk was a coder for PayPal. Yeah.
so I'm right. So I was right. I was just going to make sure that was Musk is a coder. Musk is a scientist.
Yes.
To an extent. Bezos is a businessman. At the end of the day, and Musk knows about technology and programming himself.
I do have the link here. I'll send it to you in the private chat. But the quote that Musk shared. So Musk shared a meme of Judge Dredd saying, "You have been judged," after Blue Origin lost NASA lawsuit over the SpaceX contract. Let me send it to you in the private chat so you can maybe bring the link up there.
Yeah.
Stand by. There it is.
And it's ridiculous. We're fighting over which billionaire has the better technology.
Yeah.
But you know what? I would have gone with Musk too. As much as I don't want to, I think Musk would have better tech.
According to the article, if I can quote from it, the U.S. Federal Court of Claims ruled against Blue Origin on Thursday night in its lawsuit against NASA. Federal Judge Richard Hertling's ruling ended a months-long legal battle in which Blue Origin had made SpaceX its primary target. SpaceX CEO Elon Musk commented on the ruling on Twitter. Musk responded to an article on the ruling with a meme from the 1995 movie Judge Dredd saying, "You have been judged." Scroll down, you'll see the Sylvester Stallone Twitter meme there.
Chrome tab.
Are you able to bring up? Are you able to bring up the link?
Yes.
Okay. Jeff Bezos' space company filed a lawsuit against NASA in August, claiming the space agency's decision to award a $2.9 billion contract to SpaceX was unfair and demonstrated favoritism towards SpaceX. Wah, wah, wah. The contract was awarded in April as a part of the competition between several space companies, including Blue Origin, to create a human landing system that could put boots back on the moon. Blue Origin initially filed a protest with the U.S. Government Accountability Office in July, but the organization denied the appeal. You have been judged.
Here's a good one. This is from E. Heller. Musk is a modern-day Edison, but not in the good way. Bezos is lower IQ Lex Luthor.
Yeah, that's true. Where's our Tesla, though? That's what we got to find. Where's our Tesla?
Oh, he's right. And I would, if I had a choice, if I had to pick the company that if I'm in charge of the government committee and I had to pick the company, if I have to pick a private company, like if I'm not allowed to use the public ones, I would pick Elon Musk over Jeff Bezos.
Oh, I would too. I would too. I mean, it's again, it's like
have a tantrum about it.
Yeah,
and he is having a tantrum about it.
It's the way we vote, Shane. It's like the difference between eating shit or eating a shit sandwich. You're going to choke on both, but which are you going to choke on less?
Exactly. But you know what? With the right regulations and the right government control, Elon Musk might make something decent.
Yeah, no, I don't doubt that. I don't doubt that.
I just think we need to have a little bit more control over what he's doing over there and kind of know.
Yeah. And Ed Heller makes a very good point there. Yeah, he's like our modern day Edison.
Yeah.
What did you knock down? My cat is here on my desk knocking things down and making noise.
Fun. So our last couple of stories here. Let's go into the mandate. So we're going to start with Chicago. I have a video here.
Yeah. We talked about this before the show.
So this is from the Chicago Police Union president. If you want to give everybody a little bit of background about him before.
He's Clown Catanzara. Now his real name is John Catanzara. He's the leader of the Fraternal Order of Police that gives marching orders to the police union here in Chicago. And Catanzara thinks he's mayor. He acts like he's mayor. He gives directives to his rank and file Fraternal Order of Police that are in direct conflict with what the mayor and the city council have dictated with the vaccine mandate. There are other public workers in Chicago that are mandated to take the vaccine because they are routinely they're routinely in contact with citizens in Chicago. So, of course, quite naturally, the Chicago Police Department doesn't want to follow the rules. And you know what? I think this is less about getting jabbed and more about the president of the Fraternal Order of Police using it as a political football to score points against the mayor of the city. I'm no fan of Lori Lightfoot, okay? But Catanzara is a fascist. He was supportive of Jason Van Dyke, who was the Chicago police officer who murdered Laquan McDonald in the street, which our previous mayor, Rahm Emanuel, covered up to win an election. He's just this slovenly character. And what's really, really alarming is that so many of our police officers in Chicago continue to vote for this guy as the leader of their union. And he's a menace, quite frankly.
Unions love unions, but sometimes
I love union. No, I love you. No, I'm not anti-union. I'm very pro-union.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying I love unions, but sometimes there's corruption within unions. And the same
absolutely.
The same people will be elected over and over.
Right. And in the same breath that this guy is claiming that, first of all, in Chicago, you have no idea how much taxpayer money goes towards paying for lawsuits that are filed against the police department for civil rights violations, manslaughter, neglect, abuse. We pay all those lawsuits. Chicago police officers don't have to have liability insurance as doctors or their licensed professionals do. All of the money that pays for their mistakes comes out of our pockets, number one. And that's millions of dollars each year. Number two, last year, Mayor Lightfoot directed, I think, 70 to 80% of our federal COVID relief funds towards police overtime. Didn't go to the people in the city of Chicago. It went towards police overtime. Okay? We are constantly shoveling money into the Chicago Police Department. Catanzara doesn't think that City Hall has police officers' backs because suddenly Chicago and City Hall have started, at the very minimum, expecting the police need to be accountable for all of these abuses by some officers while doing their jobs. So Catanzara directing the members of the Fraternal Order of Police against the mandate, this is less about the jab and more about, we're the Chicago Police Department. We want to follow any rules. And because you want to hold us accountable now for things that we're doing that obviously are not what we're supposed to be doing as cops, we're going to resist. And a lot of police officers in Chicago have been suspended because they weren't following the mandates. And so the city of Chicago put out a request to people to come in, new recruits for the police department, to come in and take the police exam. So Catanzara started offering $500 to Chicago police officers that were suspended to stand in front of City Hall and dissuade those potential new recruits to take the exam because the city doesn't have their backs, thereby making the streets less safe because there are less cops on the streets because they are suspended and we can't get new recruits to cover the gap. That's who Fraternal Order of Police President John Catanzara is. So I went into more detail, but that kind of gives you an overview of like what we're dealing with here in Chicago with the mandate as it relates to the police department.
Absolutely. Let's take a look at this video.
Chicago's police union shared a new video again telling officers to refuse to reveal their COVID vaccination status. But city data shows more officers are reporting their statuses. According to the Chicago Tribune, the percentage of officers who complied with the requirement has now climbed to 76%, it's up from 65% in mid-October. A spokesperson for the mayor says Catanzara's video was, quote, yet another desperate attempt by FOP leadership to encourage Chicago police officers to disobey a direct and lawful order from their chain of command.
There was a bit of echo on that on my end. Hopefully people could make out what was being said in the report.
So let me try to figure this out. Is there a vaccine mandate for police?
There was, but the Fraternal Order of Police has challenged the mandate that the mayor put out that all officers have to be vaccinated by December 31st. If I'm following correctly, I believe that the court overruled that they can't, the city cannot fire or suspend officers if they're not vaccinated by December 31st, which was what the mandate was all about. That
now, what are they asking for? I just want to say hi to Case. Case has
Oh, yeah.
dropped by. But
Look,
what are they asking for? So are they just saying
we don't want to get vaccinated? If we don't want to get vaccinated, we shouldn't have to get vaccinated. That's
so? Are they saying they want to be tested every day?
I
instead?
don't. I'm not
It
sure.
doesn't seem
That would be
that
a
they put out
reasonable. That would be a reasonable compromise, but I have to be honest. I don't know if they are resistant to that. Also,
I think so. I did a little bit of looking on this.
okay,
They didn't say what they wanted. They just said we don't want to be vaccinated.
Right.
So what
That's
I
as
think
much
would
as
be
I've gotten,
reasonable if they came out and said, "Hey, first of all, they need to report if they're vaccinated or not." That's ridiculous that they don't want to report that.
right.
So first off, you should.
Well,
have
they don't want to report it because they don't want to risk suspension. But as you're saying, if the compromise is getting tested every day, what's the big deal then? Right?
Exactly. Get tested. Because here's the thing. I'm not a big mandate person. I'm fine with the mask mandate, but when it comes to the vaccine mandate, I do tend to view it a little bit like your body, your choice. Okay, your body, your choice, fine. But your body, your choice, you're going to get tested.
But let
You're
me
not
ask
just
you
gonna
though,
come in
Shane,
here.
when you have a job and you're a public worker, and Ed Heller also stated in the chat, he thinks Lightfoot was offering testing as an alternative, and I don't doubt that.
Maybe he was.
There are other public employees in the city of Chicago that have contact with Chicagoans, and they followed the mandate because that's their job. To the police department that doesn't want to get vaccinated or even potentially get tested every day, what I would say is quit. Go get another job. I know Streets and Sanitation is hiring. The arrogance that the CPD has in being accountable or held accountable or being expected to do anything following the rules, which, when they're on the streets, they expect everybody else to follow the rules and not resist. And how often do you hear, when a cop tells you to do something, man, you just do it. You don't fight, you do it. Well, how are the cops leading by example when we're dealing with a public health crisis here?
No, that's true. And I agree with that. But I'm also I'm not a fan of the vaccine mandates personally. So I also look at it from that perspective. But I don't have an issue with the testing. But
yeah, I think that would be a reasonable compromise. But as Ed said, if Lightfoot was offering it,
you have to report it, because
Yeah.
if you don't report it, they don't know who to test.
That's absolutely right. So again, why do the police think that they're above the rules with something as simple as, hey, look, if you don't want to get vaccinated, can you get tested and can you just report to us so we can keep track and know that if you're sick, you're not spreading it around, because then we'd lose more officers on the street with sick leave and causing more problems.
Right. And I think he was saying that he doesn't want them to report it. And that's the bigger problem to me. Because, okay, let's say if we go with your compromise of testing, let's say they do that. If you don't report it, how do they know whether to test you then or not?
Exactly.
If you haven't reported whether you've been vaccinated. And you know what? In that case, I would even just say, I would be like, okay, you don't want to report it, we're going to test all of you.
But that goes to the heart of CPD not wanting to be accountable for anything. That's the heart of the matter, as I see it.
I agree.
And if this guy is this president of the Fraternal Order of Police is used, look, when he was told by the court he needs to zip it and not go public and tell police officers to resist the mandate while all of this was in court, he decided to go on social media and announce he's running for mayor. Because this is just a power stroke. This is just a ways to consolidate power for him. He's using a public health crisis.
So let's say you're in his position and you were asking for the same thing. How would you have handled it if the court said, okay, now we're going to deal with this, be quiet?
I would respect the law and I would be quiet.
But, he has to announce he's running for mayor, though.
No,
I'm kidding.
Okay, you're kidding. Yeah, I mean, again, yeah, it's like, all right, you know what? You follow the law, you follow the rules. That's what I just did a story tonight on Chicago Corner, Shane, where kind of unrelated, but it just shows the mindset of the Chicago Police Department. Apparently there are phony in Chicago around the sports stadiums, Comiskey Park.
Mm-hmm.
There are people out in the streets selling phony permits to drivers to park along the avenue there, the street, with what drivers didn't know were phony permits. Within view of police officers that are patrolling the street, the police officers are not arresting those selling the phony permits that are dressed up with their or yellow vests and stuff. They're ticketing the cars at $75 a ticket. Now, the police are out there seeing these people selling the phony permits, and it's been brought to the police department's attention that these people, if that's an illegal zone to park cars, why are these people wearing the parking vests, acting like they're parking personnel, selling the permits and guiding people to park there? The cops should be arresting those people, the ones selling the phony permits, to prevent all the people from illegally parking and racking up tickets. And there was video from CBS News. We showed it on the show, and it's like the cops are in full view. They're just ignoring those selling the permits, but they're ticketing the cars. That's a choice.
It is.
That's not that. And when I say choice, when you have a police department that is making those kind of choices, and they're led by a clown like Cotton Zara, and all the police department tells us is to follow the rules, while obviously they don't. And the corruption is rank in what they are enforcing. Welcome to Chicago.
Now now let me ask you: are you familiar with Camden, New Jersey? What they did with their police department?
No. Well, maybe I am, but refresh my memory. Maybe it'll jog some.
So I'm a little bit foggy on this, but Camden, New Jersey fired all their cops.
Okay.
Rehired the ones that had decent records.
Okay.
Hired new people to go along with those ones who had decent records. Put a sheriff in place that it was elected by the people, that was directly in charge of those police in that town. That's what they did to their police department.
I love that model. I think that's like that's something to that's an example to follow.
And they didn't want to fire everybody. Like, hey, we're going to fire all.
It was about reform. They were that sounds like it was a smart plan for reform. We just lost our inspector general, who's I think been serving for about 9 years or so. Mm-hmm. Now he announced he was stepping down this past July. He announced he was stepping down in July, and he actually stepped down, I think, 3 weeks ago. And you think in that stretch from July through now, our mayor would have found his replacement? No, the office is vacant right now. With the problems we have in Chicago, and this was a good inspector general. He shed a lot of light on the cockroaches that would normally scurry into the shadows and cover up the corruption and stuff. But our mayor didn't even think that it was important to have his replacement in place before he stepped down. So we have no inspector general. I think we've got someone in the interim, but they obviously don't have the teeth that he did to get anything done. That's how we operate in Chicago. So the reason I brought that up is I think that the model you brought up in Camden, New Jersey, I wish that we could propose something like that here.
And it was very simple. They fired everybody and gave them a notice. We're going to review your record, and if the review comes back good, you're going to be asked to come back.
Right. Fair enough.
So if they fired all the cops in Chicago and said, we're going to review your records, those of you who have decent records can come back. How many do you think would be rehired?
Oh, I would say maybe if we were lucky, 20, 25%. Okay. Honestly.
Then you got to hire out mostly a new police force.
Yeah.
But
plus, the Fraternal Order of Police would never allow that to happen because the union here is as strong as a union should be. But when a union is run by corrupt officials, then the union is not serving the purpose for which it was conceived.
Absolutely. And I want to get to our last story, and I think you want to talk a little bit about this, the gun the gun story.
Yeah, the Alec Baldwin tragedy, or it's not. I mean, it's not really his tragedy; it's the tragedy of the family, the survivors of the cinematographer that was shot on the Rust set.
So, for those who don't understand, what happened there?
So, what happened there is Alec Baldwin is starring in a film that he was also producing called Rust. It was a Western, and when you're on a film set, when you're doing stunts, when you're doing anything involving firearms, there's a position on the set called an armorer. And an armorer is expected, it's their responsibility to make sure that the weapons used on set are checked, that there would never even be a reason for live ammunition to be on a set, right? Because as we saw with that story decades ago with Brandon Lee, somehow a live round got into a weapon that was used on the set of The Crow. So apparently this armorer handed Alec Baldwin a weapon, and Baldwin was practicing on set, and he fired, and it was a live round in the gun. And it shot, and it killed the cinematographer, a young lady, and I'm trying to pull her name up right now. I'm sorry, guys. Hannah Gutierrez. Okay, so I'm sorry. Hannah Gutierrez Reed was the armorer in charge of firearms. That's a hired position. Now, Hannah was not a member of the union. The union workers on this film had walked off because of disputes, and some of them had said there were some safety issues on the set, but the union workers left the set. So this armorer, Hannah Gutierrez Reed, was hired to fill the gap as the armorer on the set handling the weapons. And as we all heard, somehow or another, a live round got into that weapon that was handed to Alec Baldwin, and the cinematographer was shot and killed. The director was also shot, and he was in critical condition, although I think he's recovered. And I'm sorry, I'm trying to pull up the cinematographer's name because she does deserve to be identified and honored here. Okay, the director of photography, her name was Halyana Hutchins. She was the cinematographer who was killed, and the film's assistant, and it wounded the director, Joel Souza. So, at the heart of what we're examining here is that no live rounds are ever supposed to be on a set. Now, the attorneys for the armorer are saying that this may have been a case of sabotage where somebody planted live rounds in the armorer's department or in the gun, which means that the armorer, Hannah, is not responsible. Well, no, Hannah is responsible because it's her responsibility to check the chamber, make sure there are no live rounds in that before it's handed off to talent. So I don't understand why her attorneys think that her claim that there may have been sabotage involved with live rounds being planted in the armorer's station or wherever the blank rounds were supposed to be, she overlooked that. Obviously, if she didn't look at the gun and realize there were live rounds in there, she wasn't doing her job. Mm-hmm. But the question of sabotage, I actually thought when this story broke, horrible story, I'm like, wow, I wonder if someone who hates Alec Baldwin because of all of his portrayals of our ex-president Trump decided to put a live round in there to cause a headache for him. Or, I mean, that's a real tinfoil hat political conspiracy. But the other thing I thought about was when you're talking about union members walking off this set, and there's a lot of labor disputes right now with IATSE and working conditions and in the film and TV industry, I wouldn't completely dismiss that. Maybe, who knows, if some crazy union member decided, well, we're walking off the set, we want to prove our case that we're needed and we should be hired and we should make more money. We're going to sabotage us by putting a live round there. So if something happens, it's going to prove our case that we're indispensable or we're indisposable union members. I don't know, Shane. I mean, crazier things have happened. I don't want to liken today's unions like the unions in the old days with Jimmy Hoffa, right? That were routinely involved in questionable criminal activity to further the labor union movement.
We still have unions like that today.
Of course we do.
Some of the transit unions in the Bronx of New York and upstate are controlled by the mafia, and everybody knows it in New York.
Well, yeah, unions have routinely been, some unions have been linked to mafia influences. Now, I'm a media professional. I'm a producer, director, writer. I'm not in a union, although I think unions are very important, and I'm a big supporter of the unions. However, the question or the argument for potential sabotage, I don't think is an unsound one, because it's very, very possible. Maybe there were some bad union members that decided, let's leave a live round on the set there, because if something happens, it's going to show why our positions as union workers are important, or it's going to show how unsafe this set was that we walked off of. You never know. There could have been some crazy union member that did plant the live round. It doesn't exonerate Hannah Gutierrez Reed because she still wasn't doing her job. And, for everybody who hates Alec Baldwin, it wasn't his fault. I mean, exactly. I do question his role as an executive producer. Now, sometimes actors will be identified as executive producers to make money off the back end while they're not really involved in the day-to-day operations on a film set. And I'm guessing that Baldwin probably was given the title of executive producer because he may have taken a pay cut to star in this film with a back end deal. That sometimes is how an executive producer title gets tossed around to talent. So when people are saying, well, he had a responsibility as the executive producer, because most people know the responsibilities of an executive producer do involve hiring the right people. That was his bad. I mean, if he was going to take on that title, he should have been more directly involved. But I don't know that his title as an executive producer had anything to do with the lack of safety allegations on the set that were there before the incident happened. So, I mean, I'm trying to be fair about this, but also keep people accountable. This armorer, Hannah Gutierrez Reed, is totally responsible. If it was sabotage, they got to find out who planted that live round. How responsible is Alec Baldwin for being executive producer on an unsafe set? That's a fair question. I've heard and worked on some really shitty abusive sets, and I'll tell you, making movies doesn't have to be like that. I was just talking with a friend of mine here in Chicago the other day who was working on one of the Dick Wolf shows at Cinespace. I think it was a Chicago PD or Chicago Fire, and she's just like, they treat us so well here. They respect, they honor, and they appreciate crew members and labor. That she was saying that there's literally like a lounge as they're watching dailies for below the line crew members, because they value. That's the way. Again, a film set doesn't have to be this grueling, 14, 15 hour work days where then the crew members have to drive an hour to another hotel because the producers are too cheap to keep them close by to the set. So there were a lot of allegations that with the Alec Baldwin set, one of the problems, which is why a lot of the union members, I guess, walked off, was that the producers wouldn't pay for their accommodations to be close to location. They'd have to, on top of like working really long hours, then they'd have to drive another hour or so to their hotel, and they were losing rest, which they shouldn't be in that position. But that's as much as I've been following this story. And as these recent claims came out by the armorer that there may have been sabotage with somebody planning a live round, then the question opens up, well, who would do that and why? And I don't think it's unfair to question if maybe there was a link to that union walkout regarding the fact that they said that the set was unsafe. Well, gosh, what if something like this happened? It would prove that the set was unsafe, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to sound like a Columbo here or a TV detective, but you can't rule any of this stuff out. I think it's all the speculation is founded in the investigators needing to follow all leads to figure out how the F did this bullet get in that gun if the armorer didn't put it in there.
Exactly. That's a good question. We are out of time here tonight, everybody. A little bit over. I'd like to know how that story ends. So
yeah, it's developing. It's going to keep going on. We'll just keep following it. Maybe by the maybe next first Friday of December, we'll have more answers and we can kind of re-explore this story.
Absolutely. I'm going to try to reach out to, and I hope, Jerry, you'll join me in the interview with someone from Meta.
Sure.
So we can talk to them about what's going on with Facebook trying to screw them.
Would be fun. I'd love to participate in that.
Absolutely. And I want to send everybody. So Reef, he used to be our production guy here. He has started his show, second try doing this, called Reefer After Dark.
Congratulations, Reef.
He's doing this right now with War Deer as his first guest.
Oh, War Deer. I got to go check that out. War Deer regularly is in my live chat over at Chicago Corners. I want to see War Deer. It's running right now. Will I be able to watch it after a while?
So I'm going to send you guys over there. I'm going to put this. So whoever's free right now wants to go over, check out another stream, go check out Reef and War Deer over at, I'm putting the link in the chat for everybody.
Awesome.
So, and it also, you can get it if you type in Reef Breland, Reef Breland on YouTube. You'll find his YouTube channel, and you can go check out Reef and War Deer on Reefer After Dark.
I'm heading there right now.
Okay. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in.
Thanks, everybody.